Tonight, the Bank of England steps into the debate over currency in an independent Scotland. Governor Mark Carney reveals his bank is making plans in the event of a referendum yes vote and says stability will continue whatever happens. With just a month until polling day, the First Minister, Alex Salmond, is here to answer questions. Also in the programme, Scotland's jobless figure is down as the number of people in work reaches a record high. Who's right on disability welfare? The SNP says 100,000 will lose benefits under UK-wide reform, but Westminster says the system needed to change. Locals say they're horrified after a theft at one of Orkney's most famous and sacred landmarks. And the referees' union say they hope to avoid a strike in a dispute over pay that's making the headlines. Good evening. The Governor of the Bank of England has confirmed that it does have a contingency plan in the event of a yes vote in the referendum. Mark Carney refused to reveal what the plans are, but said the bank would continue to maintain stability in the banking system, whatever the result. And I'll be speaking to the First Minister, Alex Salmond, about that in a moment. But first, here's our economics correspondent, Coletta Smith.
It's the job of the Bank of England to make us all feel sure that the cash in our pockets is actually worth something and that the system controlling the banks is secure. Today, the Governor of the Bank of England has assured us that whatever happens on the 18th of September, they will be able to deal with it.
We have contingency plans that we develop. It's never a good idea to talk about contingency plans in public, other than to assure people that we have contingency plans. I just underscore that in terms of our responsibilities for financial stability, we do have a wide range of tools and plans.
That's a step further than Mr Carney went when he made his first comments about the Scottish referendum. Last January, in a speech in Edinburgh, he outlined the boxes that would have to be ticked if Scotland were to form an official monetary union with the rest of the UK. Today's announcement confirms what most people already suspected, that the Bank of England is making contingency plans in case there's a yes vote in September. Mr Carney said today that it's up to the politicians to decide what kind of a currency we'd be spending in an independent Scotland, but he says it's up to the Bank of England to make that decision work. What the Bank of England is trying to do is make sure that no savers on either side of the border panics if there's a yes vote in September. The BBC has learned that 4 big financial companies who work out of Scotland say they're worried people might withdraw their money if there's a yes vote while negotiations take place. Speaking on BBC Scotland last night, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury repeated previous comments that a currency union is not on the table.
We know that a currency union isn't going to happen. It won't be agreed by the rest of the United Kingdom, let alone work for Scotland. Scotland would have less economic freedom, less economic sovereignty, less ability to affect our own economic destiny than we have at the moment.
But the Scottish Government say today's comments from Mark Carney provide a more common-sense approach.
For a period after the referendum, we set out for an 18-month period. Scotland will remain part of the United Kingdom, and the role and the function and the responsibility of the Bank of England for financial stability will remain intact over that period.
There's been much talk of Plan B options when it comes to the currency debate. The UK government has repeatedly stated that they're not making any contingency plans for the possibility of an independent Scotland. But today's announcement from the Bank of England strikes a very different tone. Coletta Smith, reporting Scotland.
And I'm joined now by the First Minister. Mr Salmond, isn't it a bit strange that the Governor of the Bank of England is making contingency plans for independence and you are not? You've said there is no plan B should you not get monetary union.
Well, what the Bank of England Governor said today is very helpful. It shows that he is seeking to ensure financial stability and that the Bank of England remains in charge for that transitional period. And what a contrast with the views of the Westminster parties. Secondly, he's also corrected yet again the idea that he was against a currency union. He said yet again he'll implement whatever is agreed. And thirdly, we should look at what's causing the instability. I mean, what's causing any instability is the adamant refusal of the Westminster parties to countenance a currency union, which is the preferred option of the vast majority of the of the Scottish people.
No, it's
so
not. That is, to be fair, that is your preferred option.
The social attitude survey yesterday showed it was the option favoured by the vast majority of the Scottish people. Not just that, incidentally, it also showed that the vast majority of people believe that is what's going to happen following a yes vote. So well done to the Governor of the Bank of England in behaving responsibly, where the Westminster parties are refusing to behave responsibly.
Well, let's talk about the vast majority of people. This evening, 4 major financial institutions that have large parts of their business in Scotland have told the BBC that they fear something called deposit flight from Scottish banks in the event of a yes vote. Now, the viewers watching this will be asking, why is Mark Carney, why is he having to steady the horses when you are not?
Well,
isn't that your job?
Right, OK, that's just the opposite, actually, Jackie. The point that the Governor's doing what the Governor of the Bank of England should do. The fear of deposit flight is caused by a denomination risk. That is to say, you would use a currency other than sterling. What we've been saying is exactly to prevent the fear of deposit flight, helped now by the Governor of the Bank of England, who makes it clear that they will be in charge of financial stability. Where I think it'd be useful for us to clarify and for the debate to be clarified, of course, the Westminster parties cannot stop Scotland using the pound. It's our currency. What they're actually trying to stop is us having access to the Bank of England, which is a shared asset of the United Kingdom, built up over a period of years, nationalised in 1946, and which holds about 27% of the vast debts, the financial debts. Now, the problem with that position is that is a financial asset. They cannot claim all of the financial asset of the Bank of England without taking responsibility for the financial liability of the debt. And as that message gets across, then not just the irresponsibility, but the incredible nature of the Westminster Party's position becomes clear. But
incredible nature just because they don't agree with you.
No,
Let's
that's not why it's incredible. It's incredible because the idea they would damage the economy of England, the idea they would take on all of the national debt by refusing to give us access to the assets is an incredible position. It's an irresponsible position, it's creating instability, and they should stop it now.
Well, let's assume that the other parties are bluffing and that there is monetary union. The Bank of England, with those assets, will be running the Scottish economy effectively. That's not independence.
Well, the Bank of England is in charge of monetary policy. It's independent of government. It sets interest rates independent of government. We don't set interest rates at the present moment. George Osborne doesn't set interest rates. What we would run is fiscal policy, that's taxation, spending policy, like our plans that we published to increase spending by 3%, as opposed to the Westminster plans of 1%. You know, that's the sort of policy that will help us save and invest in our National Health Service, for example.
It will look after the majority. It will look after the 60-odd million, but not the people who live in Scotland. It will determine interest rates for them and not for us. Why should it if we're independent?
Yeah, but I'm pointing out that's monetary policy. That's the setting of interest rates, financial policy. What we will control is 100% of our fiscal policy, the ability to collect all of our tax, including the vast revenues from the North Sea, and governing our spending, as opposed to having it dictated to us, as it is at the present moment, from Westminster. That is the financial freedom. And for things like the National Health Service, the difference between a Scottish government being able to decide to invest in a National Health Service, or alternatively be at the mercy of the privatisation agenda, the cutbacks that are happening in the National Health Service in England and are forecast to happen, which would then undermine our public health service. That's the big difference that independence will make.
Let's talk then about the health service. You have said the health service is under threat today. This morning, Nicola Sturgeon began the day by saying 100,000 of our most vulnerable citizens are in threat of losing their benefits. Isn't that Project Fear? Isn't that what you've been accusing your opponents of?
Well, the Project Fear is the ridiculous succession of scare stories that come from the No campaign, pointing out that the inevitable consequence of the privatisation and fragmentation of the health service in England under current circumstances...
Spending in the health service in England has been going up. Yeah, you know that as well as I do.
Well, the Labour Party, the opposition in England, say that there's a huge privatisation agenda which is designed to reduce and destroy the National Health Service. What we're pointing
and you always agree with Labour?
No, but what we're pointing out, that well, the facts agree on this case. I mean, we can see the disintegration, the fragmentation that's happening. Now, that is designed to reduce spending on the health service. That's what it's designed to do. Under the current arrangements, for every £10 effectively spent in England, Scotland gets £1. If you reduce expenditure in the health service in England, it has a knock-on consequence, unless, of course, we gain control of our own taxation, our own spending, and can protect our health service. And what we say is, to reinforce that, there should be a constitutional protection. We should build that into the new constitution. I mean, the UK, unlike just about every other country in the world, doesn't have a written constitution. Not only do we want to have a written constitution, we want a written constitution that gives a constitutional guarantee to a health service in the Nye Bevan principle, free at the point of need and properly financed from the Scottish Exchequer.
That's a best case scenario. Your campaign from day one for independence has been serving up best case scenarios. Free childcare, greater hours of free childcare, full employment, more money in people's pockets. Isn't it the case, wouldn't it perhaps have been more honest to say, independence is risky? There'll be a lot of negotiation. It might not be a straightforward proposal. It might even cost a bit more. Taxes might have to go up in the short term. Wouldn't that have been more honest to say that if independence was that important?
But Jackie, just, I mean, a week or two ago, I made a speech explicitly saying, look, we're not promising the day after independence there'll be, 3 taps in every Scottish household, whiskey, oil and water. What we're saying is, by taking charge of our financial destiny, the tax and spend of Scotland on the economy, then over a period of time, working together by investing in the right things, we can marshal the resources of this country with the fantastic people assets of this country and build a more prosperous and a more just society. We're not saying that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. But listen, you're far more likely to end up with a public health service free at the point of need, available for all the people, if that's what you want to do.
But that's not under threat anywhere.
I disagree. I think the privatisation agenda south of the border is destroying the National Health Service in England.
The health service here sends people to private hospitals and pays for it, yes, and that's happening in the south.
But we're not having a purchaser-provider fragmentation of the health service, which is happening, and our objective is not to reduce expenditure on the public health service. The point we're making, if we stay in the present system, then that policy south of the border will impact in Scotland. If we control our own finances, then we can make sure that our public health service remains free at the point of need and is constitutionally guaranteed. And that sort of issue is the very essence and point of having independence.
We're in the final weeks of the campaign. You've had one major head-to-head with Alistair Darling. The consensus was perhaps that you didn't perform as well as expected. Were you happy with your performance?
Well, I'm happy that we'll have lots of opportunities to get across the debates.
But were you happy with your... You were criticised.
Well, I adopted a tone which I hope was more conversational in terms of trying to explain issues. I would like to have had more time, as we've had tonight, to explain just exactly why we can't be stopped from using our currency and the various options that were laid out in the white paper. But listen, we're going to have lots more opportunities, and you can be absolutely certain that the Yes campaign in general and this First Minister in particular are up for the cup.
Thank you very much, First Minister Alex Salmond.
Pleasure.
And on tomorrow night's programme, we'll hear from the other side of the debate. Alistair Darling will be here in the studio for a live interview. And if you'd like more on the referendum, then tune into Radio Scotland on medium wave or digital at 11 for Referendum Tonight, or you can head online. You're watching Reporting Scotland from the BBC, and still to come on tonight's programme, the Scottish Government says 100